Acquiring an allotment can be a really exciting thing, but it can also be quite daunting and overwhelming as well. Sometimes you just don't know where to start. So I've put this video together for the beginner allotmenter in case you don't know where to start. It goes over the things that you want to do before you get an allotment, the things that you want to think about, but also the things which you might want to do when you get your first allotment as well. The first thing that you're going to want to do is put yourself down on a waiting list. That is the first thing to do, because if you put yourself down on a waiting list, you're more likely to get an allotment than someone that hasn't put their name down on a waiting list.
No way!
The wait can be quite long, sometimes years. So that's the first thing. But you're also going to want to think about the location of the allotment site which you're putting your name down for. You want to make sure that you're relatively close to the allotment site which you're applying for. I would say 15-20 minute drive maximum, because in the summer you're going to be coming down quite a lot, multiple times per week, especially when the weather's hot and dry and when the harvests are really coming in the peak of the season. I live just 5 minutes down the road, so that is ideal for me. Now, depending on the allotment site, some allotment sites actually only take applicants from inside that council area. Now, once you've been contacted by the council or the association that runs the allotment, and you've been offered an allotment to go and look at, it's important not to rush into the first allotment that you see, because there are many different things that you're going to want to think about before you accept the allotment. Have a look at what the allotment site itself is like. Is there a gate that stops trespassers from entering the site? Does the allotment site have facilities like toilets? Does it have a shop? Our allotment site has a shop which sells discounted gardening products. It's really convenient having that. But different allotment sites have different facilities. But have a look at what the facilities are like on your allotment site and make sure that it's a secure site that you're going to as well, because nobody wants their allotment to be broken into. That is the last thing you want. So make sure that you've got a good feeling about the security of the allotment site. You're also going to want to look at the state of the allotment. There's a 99% chance that the allotment that you're offered is going to be a mess. Mine was a mess before I took it on. Most allotments are going to be in quite a bad state and will need a lot of work. So don't let that put you off, but do look at things like allotment rules. Some allotments are council run, some are self-run and have a committee, and every single allotment has different rules. Some allotments are allowed structures, some allotments have a water supply, but we are encouraged to collect our own rainwater as well. Check if you're allowed any structures. Are you allowed sheds? Are you allowed greenhouses, polytunnels, and things like that? Do the rules of the allotment say that you need to cultivate a certain amount of the plot within a certain time frame? Have a good read over the rules before you accept anything. But also look at the plot as a whole. Is there any rubbish on there that might be hard work removing? Are there any perennial weeds that might prove to be a challenge, such as mare's tail, bindweed, and things like that? These can be very difficult to deal with. Not impossible, but they can make things much harder. Also look at the location of the plot itself. Are there any trees nearby that might provide unwanted shade or sap nutrients from the soil, or sap moisture out of the soil and make things harder with watering? Is the site sheltered from the wind, or is it quite exposed? You might want to think about that as well, because if you get a windstorm, it can destroy any of these structures that you build, like greenhouses and polytunnels and things like that. We lost a polytunnel a couple of years ago in the wind. It ended up in next door's plot. But if the allotment site does allow you to have structures like greenhouses, polytunnels and sheds, have a look if there's any of these already on the plot, because these can give you a good head start and be a valuable asset that you've already got before you even get started. You may even be lucky and have some valuable fruit trees on the plot as well. Have a look and see if there's any of those, any fruit bushes, fruit trees. Like we had this Victoria plum tree already on the plot before we took it on, and it's proven to be a very valuable asset, giving us some lovely juicy Victoria plums. They're just so nice. But yeah, have a look, see if there's any of these already on the plot, because they can definitely give you a good head start. Now we're going to talk about gardening tools now for starting an allotment. I've got loads of different tools and bits and bobs on my allotment for different things, but there are a few tools here which I think is the bare minimum for getting started. These are just the basics which I'm going to go over now for getting started. I don't really think you need any more than this to get started, to be honest. I think you'll be alright with these things. The first thing which you're going to need is a good pair of gardening gloves and wellies as well, because you want to keep your feet dry and you want to keep your hands protected. When you're clearing brambles, nettles, all sorts of different things, you know, sharp things, you want to protect your hands. You're also going to want a good shovel or spade or whatever you want to call it, digging shovel, whatever you want to call it. I call it a shovel. A pitchfork as well. I found this to be very handy when harvesting things that you don't really want to damage, like potatoes. They're very good for digging potatoes up and getting in between them. There's less risk of damaging them, and it's just very good for getting in the soil, which otherwise would have been quite difficult with a shovel. You know, the pitchfork just breaks through the soil much easier. I also find that it's very handy to have a good garden brush as well for tidying things up a little bit. I'd also recommend getting a rake as well for raking the soil, or just raking any bits of debris that might be around. I'd also recommend getting one of these things. I can't actually say what it is on YouTube, but I'm sure you can figure out what it is from just looking at it. This is really good for going over the soil. I'm not going to explain what the action is because I'm not allowed to say it, but it's good for clearing weeds. You know, just if you do that action, you'll scrape the weeds away and clear them away. Very good. I'd also highly recommend getting some good pruning shears or secateurs, and it's a good idea to have just a pair of garden scissors as well, because scissors are just so handy. You'll be surprised at just how many times I use these scissors around the allotment, just for loads of random things actually. So it's a good idea to have some scissors as well as the secateurs, and also some loppers as well. These are quite handy for chopping back any overgrown areas on a neglected allotment. And a good trowel as well. A trowel, it's a tool that any gardener would need, to be honest, and must have when starting an allotment as well. And that is pretty much it really. I wouldn't say there's anything else that you really need to get started. There are other things that you want to get later on when you're expanding your allotment and when you're doing other things. I'd say they're the minimum tools to get started really, and those are the tools that I would recommend to get started with. Okay, so you've decided that you're going to take this new allotment on, but what do you do now? Well, depending on what time of the year it is, you're going to want to do things slightly differently. If it's quite early in the year, late winter, spring, then you can get started and start planting a few things straight away really, but I would start off with just things that you eat. Just start off with a few easy crops like onions, potatoes, tomatoes, cucumbers, things like that. But just start off with the things that you like and just do a little bit so you don't overwhelm yourself and burn yourself out. If you're taking on a new allotment towards the end of the year, it's probably a good idea to just clear as many of the weeds as you can and start again next year, planting in the spring the following year. If you can get some weed suppressant membrane to cover some of the areas up, which is quite expensive and it's not absolutely necessary, no matter when you take the new allotment on, you're going to just want to get stuck in really. Clear as many of the weeds as you can. You don't have to do all of it in the first year. Some allotments require you to cultivate a certain amount of the plot within a certain time frame, but I would just work bit by bit. maybe just cultivate 1/3 of the plot in year 1, and then another third in year 2, and then the last third in year 3. Just do it section by section. Don't feel like you have to do it all at once, because allotments are pretty big spaces and it would take you a lot of work to cultivate the entire thing in 1 year. I took this allotment on before lockdown, and I had 6 months furlough during lockdown, and even then I couldn't cultivate the entire plot in the first year. It took me about 3 or 4 years before the whole thing was cultivated. So don't feel like there's a rush to get it all cultivated and completely perfect within year 1. When you're clearing the weeds, it'd be a good idea to start composting as soon as you can. Get some of the Dalek style compost bins. You can actually pick them up on Facebook Market for free. I got 5 of them off Facebook Marketplace, completely free. Start sticking all the green waste into there when you start clearing it, but do be mindful of the perennial weeds because they can start sprouting in the compost. It would be best to burn these if you can. Maybe get an incinerator where you can burn these weeds. Mare's tail and bindweed are just going to grow in your compost bin if you stick them in there, but your annual weeds that grow from seeds every year, they can be stuck in the compost bin. Putting the work in to make your own compost early on is definitely a really good idea when you first take the allotment on. So all the nutrients from them weeds that you're pulling up, they're just going to go back into the plot at a later time. Now have a little bit of a think about how you want your allotment set up. Do you want to build raised beds and go no dig, or do you want to grow in the open ground? There are pros and cons to both of them. Raised beds can be an expensive but worthwhile investment, which do require a bit of work, but I would say they are very much worth it. If you've got heavy clay soil, this is another thing that you want to look at as well. Is the soil heavy clay, or is it quite well maintained? Did the allotment holder before look after it? Did they add lots of compost to the allotment and keep the soil in good condition? With me, it was heavy clay, so I had to build lots of raised beds, and for me that's been a worthwhile investment. But if the soil isn't too heavy clay, you can just dig the soil over every single year and grow in the ground absolutely fine. That's a quick and easy way to get started rather than building lots of raised beds. Perhaps that's something you can do later. So mark out the beds and where you want them. Have them in a location that gets plenty of sun, but is also in a sheltered location as well if possible. And just mark them out, dig them over, build raised beds on them if you want. You can actually build pallet collar raised beds relatively cheap as well. Those are really easy to put together and very, very cheap. And they'll last you a good few years. I've got a few pallet collar raised beds around the plot and they've been really good. Like these pallet collars here. These work just fine and they only cost about £5 each. And I've got 2 of them here together and they make a really good raised bed. I've had these now for 3 years and they're still going strong. I did paint them with wood treatment paint to make them last a bit longer, but the wood itself is heat treated. Be careful when you're getting any wood pallets or pallet collars. Make sure they've not got MD on them. You want to make sure they've got HT on them for heat treated, because you don't want to have any of these nasty chemicals going into your garden. That's not what you want. But yeah, pallet collars, really cheap raised beds, and you'll get a good 4 or 5 years out of them. Or you could just simply go no dig and layer some cardboard on the ground and then put compost on top of it. And this way you don't need to dig at all, and then every single year you can just apply a layer of compost on top of that. You end up with much fewer weeds, and it's just much easier as well. Rather than digging and disturbing the microbial life in the soil every year, you just end up with a much healthier soil, and you're not literally smashing the worms to pieces by digging it. So yeah, this is a good way to get started as well. It's much easier, much quicker. You know, you can just literally just lay the cardboard in the soil and then plant straight into it. Or you could just dig the soil every year if you wanted to. You could rotivate it if you want to. There are different ways of doing things. Or you could build raised beds just like I have. With that, there are different methods, As I said, there's the pallet collars which you can do, which is much cheaper. You can use pallets as well actually if you wanted to. You could break some pallets apart and build them into raised beds as well. You could, if you wanted to, go out and buy some wood from a DIY merchant, which is going to be more expensive, but the beds will last much longer. Or you could go to a local scrapyard and pick some wood up cheap as well. This is going to save a lot of money, and you could get some pretty decent wood to build some raised beds with. You could even buy some cheap metal raised beds online as well. You can pick them up pretty cheap, and those will last for a very long time as well. There's many different options, but I'm just giving you a few ideas on what you can do. Now have a little think about how you want to lay out your paths as well, and what materials you want to use for them. It's a good idea to have your paths laid out around your beds for easy access, and it's a good idea to make sure that they're at least the width of a wheelbarrow, so you can easily get a wheelbarrow in and around your plot. Now, materials. You can use different materials for your paths. I like to use wood chip because I think it looks good, it's clean on your feet, it's cheap, it's easy. It just needs topping up every single year, and once it breaks down, the wood chips act as a valuable nutrient-rich mulch or compost to add to the beds and feed the plants. It's actually these wood chip paths that helped fill my raised beds up here, so they are a very valuable resource in the garden. But I just think they look brilliant. I really like the look of wood chip paths. But the most important thing is that it's so cheap and really easy. Your allotment site might get tippings from arborists in the local area. We get a few loads dropped off every now and again, completely free. But if you're someone that wants to spend a bit more money and put a bit more effort in for something that's going to be longer lasting and lower maintenance in the long run, then maybe concrete flags are an option that you want to go for. But this is going to require a lot of work initially. But you could even also have grass paths as well. I've seen quite a few people have done grass for their paths. It just requires quite a bit of maintenance with cutting it and keeping it in good shape. Now, this isn't something that you have to look into straight away, but this is something for a bit later on if you want to do this. I would recommend doing it because it really does pay off in dividends, and it really extends the growing season. And that is investing in a greenhouse or a polytunnel or both, because it really does make a big difference. It opens up many doors for things that you can grow, which you wouldn't get away with growing outside as easily. Things like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, aubergines. Actually, many more crops than just these as well. There's all sorts you can grow in a greenhouse and a polytunnel. You can start things off early in the growing season and get them off to a good start before they go outside, giving you many weeks head start on the growing season. But then, like I said, there's the exotic fruits and vegetables which require a lot of warmth to grow, like the peppers. It can be difficult to grow peppers outdoors in the UK. But then you've also got an extension at the end of the growing season as well. You can really extend the harvests into the autumn as well. Don't feel pressured to go and buy a greenhouse or a polytunnel straight away, but this is something that you might want to think about if you're getting an allotment. There are polytunnels which you can actually get relatively cheaply. Like, I've got a cheap polytunnel here which only cost me a couple of £100, and the frame has now lasted 5 years. I did have to replace the cover last year. That only lasted 4 years. But for the amount of productivity you get, they are worth getting. I'm growing peppers in here this year. I built some raised beds in here as well, which have made things much easier for me. But the peppers are doing so well. They're just starting to ripen now. I would not be getting away with these if I were growing the peppers outside. The chances are I won't be getting a crop of peppers had I grown these outside. Now, also have a think about things that you can build as well. You don't have to go out and buy expensive things like expensive potting benches and staging for your greenhouse and stuff like that. You can actually build them yourself really cheaply. Now, 4 years ago, I purchased a few pallets. I spent £20 on about 10 pallets, I think. They were only £2 each. And I used about 5 or 6 of them to build this, which is 10 foot in length. And honestly, it really does the job. It's really handy when I've got loads of seedlings early on in the growing season on this bench. You know, in April and May, this bench is full of young seedlings. But honestly, this should last many more years actually. There's no rot on it yet. They're heat treated pallets as well. All I've done is apply a wood treatment paint on the top. It took me a good few hours to put together, I won't lie. I had to do a bit of cutting and I had to put some screws in as well to hold it together. But, you know, it's pretty strong. It holds my weight just fine. I'm 11.5 stone. I'm not that heavy, but you know, it is really solid. And I've got no problems with this at all. It should last at least another 4 or 5 years, I reckon. So yeah, you can really be adventurous with different things you can make. I'm not just talking about staging, but I'm talking about compost bins, plant supports as well, like trellises. You can make pallets out of trellises. I've even seen people grow things in pallets. I've seen people fill pallets up with compost and plant herbs, strawberries and salad leaves in them as well. There are lots of different things you can make yourself with just a little bit of effort and a little bit of time. You can create quite a few different things. Another example is the fence which I put around my allotment. I did that 4 years ago and it's still holding up really good. I got them completely for free. I got some 12-foot long pallets and it goes around the perimeter of my allotment. Now you might be lucky and your allotment site might have a water source. Quite a lot of allotments don't, and many of them require you to have your own water collection system. So it may be a case of having to hook up your own water collection system, whether it be a water butt, which you can buy from most garden centres to be honest, or even free. You can even get them free off Facebook Marketplace. Or connecting up some IBCs to a shed or any other structure that you have, which I've done here. I've got 2 IBCs connected up to the shed and I just have guttering running right the way around the shed. Obviously you don't have to do anything like this initially. This is an idea that you could do in the future perhaps. Even just a simple water butt, to be honest. It doesn't have to be a big system like this. I'm just putting some ideas out there. Water collection is a really good thing to think about once you've started to set your allotment up and you've got an idea of what's going on and what you're doing. And if you do have a water source on your allotment site, I'd highly recommend getting a hose pipe as well. It can just be a cheap one. You know, you can probably pick one up on Facebook Marketplace and it should do the job just fine. Just something that allows you to bring the water over without having to go over with a watering can. Because if you're watering your entire allotment with just one watering can and you're having to walk a fair bit to the water source, it can take quite a long time. And actually I would recommend just getting a cheap watering can as well, especially if you've got water butts on your allotment. So you can just quickly grab a bit of water if you need it. Maybe if you just want to water some seedlings in your greenhouse, it saves you hooking up your hose pipe and setting it all up and then watering with this. There are a few things to think about and consider when you're getting an allotment. The hard work, they require a lot of time and effort. I've had my allotment for 6 years, but I never look back. Honestly, it is one of the best things I've ever done. The productivity that I get from it is just so worth it. And yes, we do save a bit of money in the summer when we're not buying as much veg from the supermarket. And actually right now we're not spending any money on vegetables because we're getting it all from the plot. In fact, I've found that I'm giving a lot of vegetables away to friends and family. There's just so much. But honestly, I love it. It is brilliant. And I would, honestly, if you're thinking about getting an allotment, I'd say just go for it and give it a go. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But honestly, I am so glad that I embarked on this adventure because it has been great. So yeah, have a think about the allotment site that you're looking at. have a look around and see if the allotment site's secure, and also check the condition of the plot and what's nearby. Are there any trees that might cause problems, and are there any things on the plot already to give you a head start, like a greenhouse, a polytunnel or a shed? Are there already beds made up for you, or do you have to make all these yourself? Is it in a good condition, or is it overgrown? If it's overgrown, be prepared to put some work in to get it up to where it needs to be. And also just take it easy to begin with. Grow a few things that you like to eat. They might not grow. If they don't, then just try again next year, but just have some practice growing a few things on the allotment to begin with. Do a bit at a time. Cultivate 1/3 of the allotment in the first year and just work on one section of it. Clear as much as you can. Start making compost early on. See what you can get free on Facebook Marketplace. See what you can repurpose and make into things on the allotment, like plant supports and different things. Like I built that pallet bench in there. It only cost me 20 quid for 10 pallets, and I used about 6 pallets, so 15 quid to build that. How much would it cost for some proper greenhouse staging that's 10 feet long and as sturdy as that? Say probably about 10 times more at least. So there's lots of different things you can do, but just go easy at the beginning, enjoy the process, don't overwhelm yourself. When you're on the way to the allotment, have a think about what job you're going to do. Prioritise the one job and focus just on that. And then the next time you come down, focus on one other job. And if you do it like this, just break it down into manageable chunks, you'll find that you're not getting overwhelmed. It's going to be easier to manage. So I just wanted to do a bit of an allotment how-to today for the new gardeners, the new allotmenters, for those that are thinking about getting an allotment, because I know it can be very overwhelming. When I took this allotment on, I had no clue what I was doing. I was clueless. I just winged it, to be honest, and I learned quite a few new things on the way as well. I learned some of the things myself through trial and error, but I also learned a lot off plot neighbours as well, and quite a few things off other YouTube gardeners as well. So I've just taken all of that I've learned over the years and tried to condense some of it down into this video, and I hope that it was understandable for you, because I'm not the best at putting lots and lots of information down into a video like this. I've had to stitch it all together into one video, but I hope it makes sense and I hope it helped you. So that's all for now, guys. I will see you in the next one. Happy gardening, and if you've just taken on new allotments, good luck with your new allotment. I'll see you in the next one.